Hey, ladies, we're here for our midweek encouragement, and I'm here with Elena and Kristen, and we're just going to kind of talk about how Sarah related to them and how they could see themselves in Sarah. And so, first off, I like that you both saw yourself in Sarah in different ways too. Like, you each had like a piece of her. So, maybe give us like a little bit of your testimony and how you felt like you were Sarah.
Mostly with the future and not like being able to see past where you're at, and also with seeing others, kind of like pessimists. You don't want to see them, like not trusting others or not seeing good in people. In 2014, my husband and I were in a horrific car accident. We should be dead. And I know that God was with me. When the accident happened, I remember looking, it was a Sunday. We were coming home from church, going to my mom's house, and a car basically, one was coming, we were in New Stanton, one was coming off of the ramp, and we were in the slow lane, and we got over to the fast lane to let them come in, and this car in the fast lane in front of us just stopped, and my husband, we were dating 3 months at the time, did not have time to stop, and we hit the guardrail and went airborne. And then I remember looking at the sky and waiting for the car to hit. And just honestly, I was a very anxious person. I still kind of am. Yeah. And but just I felt God's peace so heavy and thick, like I was in a deep ocean of peace. Yeah. And I could feel Jesus holding me behind my seat. And I remember looking at the sky and thinking, okay, I'm going to die now. And I remember whenever the car hit, which we ended up hitting a light post and ended up on the ramp. And whenever it hit, it sounded like a bomb went off and everything went black. I was in the hospital bed. I could not feed myself. I could not use the bathroom. I broke my pelvis in half. So I had 9 broken ribs. I broke L4, L5 in my back, and then my leg, something in the car cut my knee to the bone. So they had to make sure that I could keep my leg. I remember them like asking me to wiggle my toes. And I couldn't even see past where I was then. Mm-hmm. My mom believed a lot for me when I couldn't. And she stood over my bedside and she said, a year from now, you're going to be up and walking. Nobody's going to know what you went through. Yeah. And then like even now, like people don't know. You can't tell that I've ever went through anything.
No.
Yeah.
No, I would have no idea.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Because no, you go around with like that joy that like no one would ever know anything that you went through. But I mean, even though she's your mom, like it still shows how important it is to have people in your life, like speaking in to
I thought she was nuts. I was laying there. I literally thought she lost her mind because I'm like, does she not see what I'm going through or where I'm at? And she believed for me. And
okay, so I just want to read some of the questions that we had for our little small group time and just see what it stirs up in you guys. It says, have you ever been afraid to dream because you might be disappointed? Afraid to hope because you might be heartbroken? Afraid to try something new because you might fail? Afraid to connect deeply with someone because you might be rejected? Or even afraid to ask God for the desires of your heart because he might answer the prayer differently than you hoped? Which one jumps out at you?
So when we were first reading the list, I initially thought afraid to try because you may fail, because I have perfectionism tendencies and I like to be great at everything, the best at everything. And so when I read that, I was like, okay, that one hits me. Like, but what am I afraid? I was trying to think of my current life. Like, what am I afraid to try right now? I grew up here. We just moved back last summer. So we like left a very well-known area, all of our friends, our church, jobs we knew, like things we loved, and we have all of our family here, but everything else is like brand new. I'm like new to being a stay-at-home mom. My husband has a new job. We're first-time homeowners. So when I was reading that, I was like, I feel like I'm trying a lot, so maybe it's not this. And then I got to the last one, afraid to like truly ask God the desires of your heart because he might answer differently. And I think like that's something I've really learned about myself over the past few years is I I like to still think I'm in control. And so that's really hard for me, where in my head, I might be praying, and I'm like, I know God knows what's on my heart. Like, he put it there. But there is like a fear of, I know the desire and I have a path in mind of like what it looks like for God to grant me that desire, which is not how it works. And I was like just sharing with our table, like right now we're blessed with a daughter. Love her. She's spunky, but we're hoping to grow our family. And we thought I would be very close to having a baby by now, like our timeline. And it's just not been that. And so I think that's been scary, truly, too, of just like trying to actually release surrender of like, okay, God, like you place the desire on my heart, on my husband's heart to have more children, to grow this family, to raise like many little believers, and just kind of like, where are you? Why is it not happening? But also like trying to trust, kind of like Sarah did, of like God spoke to her and she was like, okay, like it's gonna happen. And it wasn't when she wanted it or thought either. And so trying to just like surrender to that, I think I really related to her. And kind of also like then thinking back to the sermon a couple of weeks ago on anxiety, of like praying through your circumstance and not around, which I'm sure you can relate to as well with your accident, of like just like truly like going to God with it right now and not trying to change like the symptoms. And so like for me, it really is like trying to release that, like, and just like you said, it's Sarah's story too, of like continuing to just like be obedient and like trusting that like blessings will come from obedience, but it's not easy.
So like how do you do that? Like how do you effectively, like whenever your mind starts to drift, what do you like, how do you react in that moment?
I think I personally like let myself feel a little sad or disappointed, but I also kind of like I was saying with like I then like look at my child and I'm like, okay, well, I know like you were made to be ours. Like our next child would be the same way. And I think for me, like um I'm most often able to stay like trusting on the future when I almost like look back at the blessings I've received so far
and hold on to his promise, because he's so faithful. And I mean, like, even when the accident happened, I remember thinking, will I be able to have kids? I was 21. And like literally his hand is over our lives, even to where we don't even realize. Like, the surgeon I had, usually when someone breaks their pelvis in half, so it's like split, they'll put a sphere in them. Well, because I was young, the surgeon decided to put a leg screw in my pelvis so I could carry babies. If he put a sphere in there, I would not be able to. And I remember asking, I was so afraid to ask, like, will I be able to have kids? And he said, well, you'll have to have C-sections because your hips won't expand. But yeah, you should be able to. And then, like, I mean, he's even put people in my life through, like, I was at a place called Life Care. It's like a transitional care unit. And my nurse, she was in an accident and went on to have 3 kids. And she was also really, really injured. So it's just holding on to that promise that he's given you. And then the other thing that I kept thinking with this whole study is about joy. There's some covering that I don't even know that he was protecting me from. And after the accident, I remember even looking at my daughter, and I'd feel so happy to have her, and I'd start feeling joy. And then the enemy would tell me, oh, don't feel that. Don't you? No, remember what happened the last time you felt that way? I can take that away from you. Whenever the accident happened, I ended up going out with some of my friends. We were supposed to go to the mall and go to dinner. And I was in a wheelchair, so my mom, of course, had to drive me. And then we ended up waiting there for like an hour, and they went without me. And so that was like a big hurt for me. But I kind of realized that I didn't have the best friends, maybe. Not the ones that he would want for me.
Right. I think that's why it's also so important to have those, like we were talking about vulnerability this week, like friends that you can share like the desires of your heart with, like when the enemy is, you feel him attacking, like I am with you, like he is real. But having someone to be able to say like, pray against the attack of the enemy over my family, and like cultivating like Christian friends that you can go to with the same thing and like truly tell them like that.
And then for a time there, I was like, I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
I can do this by myself, which is very much Sarah, right?
Yes,
like, just,
yeah.
I'm going to do it myself then if God's not going to,
Yeah.
and it's like,
But that's
no.
whenever you allow the enemy in,
Right.
because he's going to come speak that death into your ear, and then you don't have anybody speaking that life to push that away and be like, that's not truth.
Yes, that's the thing. The hardest part, I think, is the doubt of just like, is this actually, I think it was someone else at my table of sometimes being like, wait, did I actually hear that from God? And I feel like that's where the enemy is like, gets in your head of like, did he really tell you that? Did he really promise you this? And it's like, no, he did.
Yeah. And that's why it's also so important to have your good relationship with him, that good foundation. So then you're more sensitive to when it's him and when it's not. So do you girls have any kind of encouragement to anybody else who may have related to Sarah too?
My encouragement would be to get out there and still meet people. I think that's where I had like the biggest breakthrough, was like pushing myself to meet other Christians and say like, no, it's not everybody is bad. Not everyone is not a true friend or a person. And the other thing is holding on to that promise, and don't let the enemy steal your joy, and don't let him doubt, like, don't let him poke you. Just say, nope.
I think mine's similar of finding like and really pursuing, because they're not just going to fall into our lap, like true friends who are believers and who will continue to speak life like into you and over you. And then I think also something for me as like a newer mom, I guess, has just been forcing myself to truly like slow down and find that stillness to like hear God and like find the joy. Like life is still gonna be hard. But for me, especially when I'm able to like take a step back, slow down, and look just in my everyday life, like everything God has blessed me with, I immediately feel so much like lighter, happier. The doubt kind of goes away because like we were saying, it's like, wow, this is all because of you. Like, I'm good.
So, ladies, this week, remember, choose joy. It's a hard thing to do sometimes, but there's always something positive. So look for it, and know that we're all here to support one each other too. So if you need that friend, come and join us. But anyways, have a good week, girls.